वासुदेवाय। ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। Srimad Bhagavatam, Chapter 5, Text 21. त्वमात्मनात्मनम् अवेय अमोघदृक् परस्य पुंसा परमात्मना कलाम् अजं प्रजातं जगत आश्रयतन् महानुभवाद्युदयो अधिगण्यताम्.
Prabhuji, I'll recite the English while waiting for Sonal Mataji to join. Can you put the script down a bit, please? Thank you. Translation. Your goodness has perfect vision. You yourself can know the super soul personality of Godhead because you are present as the plenary portion of the Lord. Although you are birthless, you have appeared on this earth for the well-being of all people. Please, therefore, describe the transcendental pastimes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, more vividly.
Text 22. Idam hi pumsastapasya shrutasya va shvitasya suktasya cha buddhidattayo avyuchuto artha kavibhir nirupito yaduttama shloka gunanuvarnanam.
Learned circles have positively concluded that the infallible advancement of knowledge, namely austerities, study of the Vedas, sacrifice, chanting of hymns and charity, culminates in the transcendental descriptions of the Lord, who is defined in choice poetry.
Text 23. Aham puratita bhaveyabham mune dasyastu kasyaschana vedavadinam nirupito balaka eva yoginam shushrushan pravrishi nirvivikshatam.
O Muni, in the last millennium, I was born as the son of a certain maidservant engaged in the service of Brahmanas who were following the principles of Vedanta. When they were living together during the 4 months of the rainy season, I was engaged in their personal service.
Text 24. Te mayi apita khila chapale arbhake dante adhrita kridanake anuvartini chakru kripam yadapi tulya darshana shushrusmane munayo alpabhashini.
Although they were impartial by nature, those followers of the Vedanta blessed me with their causeless mercy. As far as I was concerned, I was self-controlled and had no attachment for sports, even though I was a boy. In addition, I was not naughty and I did not speak more than required.
Text 25. Uchishtha lepan anumodito dvije sakrit sma bhunje tad apasta kilbhisha evam pravrittasya vishuddha chetasas tad dharma evatma ruchi prajayate.
Once, only by their permission, I took the remnants of their food, and by so doing, all my sins were at once eradicated. Thus, being engaged, I became purified in heart, and at that time, the very nature of the transcendentalist became attractive to me.
Text 26. Tatran vaham Krishna katha pragayatam अनुग्रहेणाश्वर्णं मनोहरा तः श्रद्धया मे अनुपदं विश्विन्वत प्रिय सर्वसी अंगममा भद्रुचि.
O Vyasadeva, in that association and by the mercy of those great Vedantists, I could hear them describe the attractive activities of Lord Krishna, and thus listening attentively, my taste for hearing of the personality of Godhead increased at every step.
Text 27. Tasmimstada labdha rucher mahamate priyashravasya akhilata matirmama yayaham etad sad asad swamayaya pashe mai brahmani kalpitam pare.
O great sage, as soon as I got a taste for the personality of Godhead, my attention to hear of the Lord was unflinching. And as my taste developed, I could realize that it was only in my ignorance that I had accepted gross and subtle coverings, for both the Lord and I are transcendental.
Text 28. Itham sharat pravrishika vriturhare Vrishnin vato me anushvavam yashomalam sankirtayamanam munibhir mahatmabhir bhakti pravrittatma rajastamopaha.
Thus, during 2 seasons, the rainy season and autumn, I had the opportunity to hear these great-souled sages constantly chant the unadulterated glories of the Lord Hari. As the flow of my devotional service began, the coverings of the modes of passion and ignorance vanished.
Text 29. Tasyevam me anuraktasya prashritasya hatanyashaha shraddhanasya balasya dantasya anucharasya cha.
I was very much attached to those sages. I was gentle in behavior, and all my sins were eradicated in their service. In my heart, I had strong faith in them. I had subjugated the senses, and I was strictly following them with body and mind.
Text 30. Jnanam guhyatamam yattat sakshat bhagavato taditam anvavochan gamishanta kripaya deenavatsalaha.
As they were leaving, those Bhakti Vedantas, who are very kind to poor-hearted souls, instructed me in that most confidential subject, which is instructed by the personality of Godhead himself.
Text 31. Yenaivaham bhagavato vasudevasya vedasa mayanubhavam avidam yena gachanti tatpadam.
By that confidential knowledge, I could clearly understand the influence of the energy of Lord Sri Krishna, the creator, maintainer, and annihilator of everything. By knowing that, one can return to him and personally meet him.
Text 32. Etat samshuchitam brahmam tapatraya chikitsitam yadishvare bhagavati karma brahmani bhavitam.
O Brahmana Vyasadeva, it is decided by the learned that the best remedial measure for removing all troubles and miseries is to dedicate one's activities to the service of the Supreme Lord Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna.
Text 33. Amayo yascha bhutanam jayate yena suvrata tadeva hyam amanyam dravyam na punati chikitsitam.
O good soul, does not a thing, applied therapeutically, cure a disease which was caused by that very same thing?
Text 34. Evam rinam kriya yoga sarve samshriti hetava ता एवात्मा विनाशाय kalpante kalpita pare.
Thus, when all a man's activities are dedicated to the service of the Lord, those very activities which cause his perpetual bondage become the destroyer of the tree of work.
Text 35. Yadatra kriyate karma bhagavat paritoshanam jnanam yattadhadinam hi bhakti yoga samanvitam.
Whatever work is done here in this life for the satisfaction of the mission of the Lord is called Bhakti Yoga, or transcendental loving service to the Lord, and what is called knowledge becomes a concomitant factor.
Text 36. Kurvana yatra karmani bhagavat chikitsayaskrita gananti gunanamani krishnasya anusmaranti cha.
While performing duties according to the order of Sri Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one constantly remembers him, his names, and his qualities.
Text 37. Om Namo Bhagavate Tubhyam Vasudevaya Dhimahi Pradyumna Aniruddhaya Namah Sankarshanaya Cha.
Let us all chant the glories of Vasudeva along with his plenary expansions, Pradyumna, Aniruddha, and Sankarsana.
Text 38. Iti murtyabhidhanena mantramurtim amurtikam yajate yajya purusham sa samyak darshana puman.
Thus, he is the actual seer who worships, in the form of transcendental sound representation, the Supreme Personality of Godhead Vishnu, who has no material form.
Text 39. Imam swanigamam brahman avidyamad anushtitam adan me jnanam aishwaryam swasmin bhavam cha keshava.
O Brahmana, thus by the Supreme Lord Krishna, I was endowed first with the transcendental knowledge of the Lord, as inculcated in the confidential parts of the Vedas, then with the spiritual opulences, and then with his intimate loving service.
Text 40. Tvamapyadabhra shruta vishrutam vibho samapyate yena vidam bubhushsitam prakhyahi dukkher muhur arditatmanam sanklesha nirvanam ushanti nanyatha.
Please therefore describe the Almighty Lord's activities which you have learned by your vast knowledge of the Vedas, for that will satisfy the hankerings of great learned men, and at the same time mitigate the miseries of the masses of common people who are always suffering from material pangs. Indeed, there is no other way to get out of such miseries.
Hare Krishna, please forgive my mistakes. Hare Krishna, thank you.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, Rupa Mataji, Soma Mataji. That was a very nice recitation.
Thank you.
Okay, so we'll be carrying on. So we just have, 2 verses left on this chapter. So today we'll be looking at text 39. So, before that, we'll do the Mangalachara. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakamitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Pancha Kalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Vyayavacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. Share my presentation for today's verse. Second. Okay, so as I said, we'll be looking at text 39. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Imam Swanigamam Brahman Navetya Madhishtitam Adanme Jnanam Aishwaryam Swasmin Bhavam Chakeshavaha. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. So translation: O Brahmana, thus by the Supreme Lord Krishna, I was endowed first with the transcendental knowledge of the Lord, as inculcated in the confidential parts of the Vedas, then with the spiritual opulences, and then with His intimate loving service. So just before we go on to the purport, we can see here, obviously that we can see there's some kind of progression of what he has received. So first of all, it's saying, Vyasadeva is saying that first of all, Narani was saying that, in that past life, first he received that transcendental knowledge of the Lord, according to the confidential parts of the Vedas. And then, once we received that transcendental knowledge, then also we achieve the opulences, the mystic opulences, which will be covered in the purport in more detail. So we receive knowledge, we receive opulence, we receive all these things, but ultimately the end here is the intimate loving service of the Lord. So he's kind of hinting that that's the topmost, that's the ultimate. You're getting all these things along the way. For example, these opulences, they're pretty much like byproducts that are along the process of devotional service. Automatically you get them as byproducts, but that's not the aim, that's not the goal. Is the last bit. It is the intimate loving service of Krishna. So that's the essence. So I split up the purport into a few sections. Yeah, can we maybe have one volunteer just read this section, please?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu, can I recite with your permission?
Sure,
Thank you. Hare Krishna. A communion with the Lord by transmission of the transcendental sound is non-different from the whole spirit. O Lord Shri Krishna, it is completely perfect method for approaching the Lord. Thank you, Hare Krishna.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so Srila Prabhupada is starting by talking about transcendental sound. He's talking about the holy name of the Lord, and he's saying that, you know, this is a way of communion with the Lord. It's a way to make contact with the Lord, to develop a relationship with the Lord. It all starts from this transcendental sound, or starts from the holy name. And Srila Prabhupada is saying here that transcendental sound, or in other words, the holy name, Krishna's name, is non-different from the whole spirit, Lord Sri Krishna. So Krishna himself, there's no difference between him and his name. We all know this, you know, we've heard this so many times. And just this one.
Sorry, Prabhu, sorry to interrupt. There's a lot of background noise coming. Please, can you mute everyone, please? Thank you.
Yeah.
Hare Krishna.
Sorry for that. Okay. So here it's saying that just this one method of, you can, if you like, approaching the Lord through his holy name, just this one method, it says, Srila Prabhupada says, this is the perfect method for approaching the Lord. So if it's the perfect method, it's ultimately, that's all we need. You know, just by the holy name alone, Srila Prabhupada is saying that is the perfect method for approaching Krishna. And then he goes on to explain. Yeah, maybe we can have another volunteer to read the second part.
If I may read Prabhuji, thank you.
Thank you.
By such pure contact with the Lord, without offense of material conceptions, numbering 10, the devotee can rise above the material plane to understand the inner meaning of the Vedic literatures, including the Lord's existence in the transcendental realm.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so if we go back, he's talking about, you know, communion with the Lord through transcendental sound, through the holy name, and this is pure contact with the Lord. If it is without offenses, without the, it says numbering 10, so this is obviously referring to the 10 offenses to the holy name. So it's saying, if we approach Krishna for his holy name offenselessly, without committing the 10 offenses, then it's considered pure. And then through that pure contact with the Lord, then we can, you know, we can rise above our material existence. And here it's saying you can even understand the Lord's existence in the transcendental realm. We know Sri Krishna is eternally present in the spiritual world, in various expansions in the Vaikuntha planets, and in the original form, Sri Krishna himself in Goloka Vrindavan. So here it's saying, again, just through the holy name, we can understand, he says, the meaning of Vedic literatures, including the Lord's existence in the transcendental realm. So just like Chaitanya Mahaprabhu explains all of these different things, if you like, the benefits or the effects of chanting the holy name is all explained in the first verse of the Shikshashtakam. And here, you know, like it says, Vidya Vadu, it says that we can, just through chanting the holy name, we can get the understanding of all the Vedic scriptures. All Vedic knowledge is revealed in the heart simply by chanting the holy name regularly, sincerely, and ultimately without offense. Then we don't have to read all the scriptures. Then Krishna will reveal everything we need to know within our heart, including his existence in the transcendental realm. So what does that mean, his existence in the transcendental realm? Because he's not just sitting there doing nothing. He's engaging in so many different unlimited pastimes with his devotees. So when we talk about you understand the Lord's existence in the transcendental realm, that means you understand everything that he does in the spiritual world, all his, his pastimes, like we talk about the name, form, pastimes and qualities, all of those things we will be able to understand. The activities, the exchanges of love that he has with his devotees in the spiritual world. You can understand all of these things simply by chanting the holy name purely. And I don't know about those listening, but at least for me, I'm definitely not chanting the holy name purely, but at least we want to try and avoid these 10 offenses to the holy name, and gradually, obviously not immediately, but gradually our chanting will become pure. We'll get through that initial offensive stage of chanting. The Namaparad stage of chanting will eventually get through that. So I just wanted to, obviously it's mentioning the 10 offenses to the holy name, so I just wanted to go through those. If you've ever been to the temple, to the manor, or other temples for the morning program, you would have heard these because we recite them every day, every morning before we have the japa period in the temple room. So we go through, everyone there in the temple room, we together, we recite the offenses, the 10 offenses to the holy name just before we start chanting, so that they're fresh in our mind. But sometimes, at least for me, it can have at least I experienced, it can have a downside when I was previously staying in the temple, that sometimes if you're just repeating it again and again every morning, and it becomes just kind of like a dry kind of ritual, and then you forget to actually have to be conscious that it's not just, I read them and then just start chanting and do whatever, but we have to be actually consciously trying to avoid these offenses to the holy name when we're chanting. So definitely I'm, at least speaking for myself, guilty of not being conscious enough that I'm trying to avoid these. So that's something for me to improve as well. But anyway, so let's go through the 10 offenses. So the first offense is to blaspheme the devotees who have dedicated their lives to propagating the holy name of the Lord. So we know that those who are spreading the holy name of the Lord, we heard earlier, there's no difference between Krishna's name and Krishna himself. So those who are spreading the holy name of the Lord, they are giving Krishna to others. And we know that Krishna is most happy when we bring others to him. When we give Krishna to others, then he's most happy. So conversely, obviously, if you are blaspheming those who are so dear to Krishna, so dear to the holy name, so dear to Nam Prabhu, then obviously that's an offense. Krishna is not going to take that lightly, that these devotees, they have given their life to tell others about me, and then who are you to blaspheme them? So obviously this would be an offense. Then we have, also we can consider on the opposite side, if you like. So we can, instead of blaspheming the devotees, what should we try and do? Instead, we should glorify the devotees whenever we can. Not in the fake way that sometimes we do, not fake, but sometimes we kind of do it not fully sincerely, we just, but really from the heart, glorify the devotees. Then that kind of helps us to overcome that offense. Because when we're so used to, when we become conditioned to glorify the devotees, then we're not going to be, thinking about blaspheming them. And then the second offense is to consider the names of demigods like Lord Shiva or Lord Brahma to be equal to or independent of the names of Lord Vishnu. So this is basically referring to how, it's showing that there's obviously a difference between, as we all know, there's a difference between the demigods and the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna or Vishnu. There's a clear difference, and that difference applies to their names as well. So yeah, there's a difference in the results. One point is that there's a difference in the results that we would get from, for example, chanting the name of Lord Brahma, or chanting Vishnu's name, or chanting Krishna's name. There's a difference in the results of that chanting. And all those benefits we hear from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in the Shikshastakam of chanting the holy name, that applies to the holy name of Krishna, of the Supreme Lord, not of the demigods. And so we should never consider those names to be equal to the names of the Lord. At the same time, we shouldn't consider them to be independent of the names of the Lord, because they are, ultimately they are the demigods, just like us. They're parts and parcels of the Lord performing a specific function, and they're not independent from the Supreme Lord. But yeah, we shouldn't ever consider those names to be equal to the names of the Lord. And we also then hear in the scriptures, it even explains that I can't remember the actual numbers, but a certain number of names of Lord Vishnu is equal to chanting one name of Lord Ram. Maybe someone knows, and then chanting the name of Krishna is equal to chanting the name of Lord Ram 3 times. So even there's a hierarchy, but this is just referring to the difference between the demigods and the Lord. And then we have a third offense, which is to disobey the orders of the spiritual master. And how is this? We might think, we read this and say, okay, disobey the orders of the spiritual master. How is that an offense to the holy name? Like, or maybe it's an offense to the spiritual master, but what is even the connection with the holy name? So obviously the spiritual master is the one who connects us to the parampara, and he or she officially connects us to the parampara and officially gives us the holy name. And then there's something different when you actually receive the holy name officially from your spiritual master. So yeah, they are teaching you, they're teaching you devotional service, they're teaching you how to approach Krishna. And as we said, there's no difference between Krishna and his name. So how to, in one sense, they're teaching us how to approach the holy name. They've given us the holy name. So if we're then disobeying, or in other words, going against the desires of the spiritual master, then you can say that's kind of like being ungrateful. Yeah, that's it, that you're being ungrateful to the spiritual master, because he's given you the holy name, and now you're not following his desire, his wishes, or her wishes. And then obviously then the Lord considers that an offense. And then we have the fourth offense is to blaspheme the Vedic literature, or literature in pursuance of the Vedic version. And again, this is, the Vedic literature is also transcendental sound, just like the holy name is transcendental sound. The Vedic literature, the Vedic scriptures are also transcendental sound. So if we blaspheme those and go against them, it's obviously also an offense to the holy name. So again, if we read the scriptures sincerely, according to following the disciplic succession, following our spiritual master, and if we read properly like that, then we will get some understanding and some appreciation for the Vedic scriptures and some gratitude for the Vedic scriptures, and then that will help us to overcome that sort of blaspheming mentality, or that belittling mentality. We just, we don't take the scriptures seriously, and we don't understand, or we don't value the importance of the scriptures, and consider it just to be the same as mundane writing. This is actually the word of the Lord. This is actually transcendental sound. So blaspheming that is also an offense. Then the fifth one, that's more obvious, the connection to the holy name, is saying to consider the glories of chanting Hare Krishna to be an imagination. So all the acharyas, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Srila Prabhupada, they all tell us all about the glories of chanting Hare Krishna and the incredible, matchless effects of chanting Hare Krishna. Nothing else can match this. And if we consider, oh, this is just, that can't be true. They're just making it up. That's just imagination. It doesn't actually. If we think it can't actually achieve all those things, then that is also an offense, because we're taking the holy name cheaply. And similarly, number 6, to give some interpretation on the holy name of the Lord means to give our own personal opinion, personal interpretation, speculation, not based on Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra, not based on what is given by the acharyas and by the scriptures, but just our own random interpretation. Then that, again, that is an offense. And then especially if you're explaining that misinterpretation to others as well, then definitely that is an offense. So again, conversely, we should get the understanding, the true understanding of the holy name directly from the acharyas, from scriptures, from Srila Prabhupada. Then we won't misunderstand, and we won't give a wrong interpretation. So we just accept it as it is, from the parampara. And then we have the 7th offense, which is to commit sinful activities on the strength of chanting the holy name of the Lord. And Srila Prabhupada says in some lectures that this is the worst. This is the worst offense, because he gives the example many times of people going to church and then doing confession, confessing their sins, and then again doing the same sinful activities, then again confessing, and again like that. But yeah, we can't, we hear the, as it mentioned in number 5, the glories of chanting Hare Krishna, these unmatched glories, that they can, chanting the holy name can destroy the sinful reactions of more sins than we can actually possibly commit. It is said in the scriptures. So that's how powerful chanting the holy name of the Lord is. But it doesn't mean we take advantage of that for material gain, and we commit whatever sinful activities we like. Then we think, okay, now I'm just going to chant, get rid of my offenses, and then do the same thing again. This is very, very serious offense. And that's why Srila Prabhupada says sometimes this is the worst offense that we can do. And then, because obviously Krishna, sometimes we accidentally or by mistake commit certain sinful activities or certain offenses, or maybe because due to past habits from so many lifetimes in the material world. Obviously, we're not going to give up all of these things, all of these sinful activities that we become so accustomed to over so many lifetimes. It's not going to be easy to give them up straight away. So sometimes, like Srila Prabhupada says, sometimes due to past habits, you may you may commit those sinful activities again, but it's not that we intentionally wanted to. It's just, it just happened, and then that's different, and Krishna understands that. But this is actually deliberately doing it, and then knowing, oh, now I'm going to chant, and this is going to remove those sinful reactions, and then I'm going to do it again. That's different. So doing it in ignorance doing it willfully, there's a difference. Yeah, there's a difference there. Because like we hear that example, devotees give the example, it's like a fan, when we have the fan going, and then when we turn off the fan, it doesn't immediately stop, it still keeps going round and round, but it goes slower and slower and gradually, comes to a stop. So that's the same thing with these sinful activities that we become habituated to over so many lifetimes. We may, stop them, but then, it's a gradual process, and sometimes we may, due to those past habits, we may still do them, but eventually we will stop. So then the 8th offense is to consider the chanting of Hare Krishna to be one of the auspicious ritualistic activities offered in the Vedas as fruitive activities, karma kanda. There's so many, as we know in the Vedas, there's so many auspicious ritualistic activities are given that we get some fruitive gain, some material gain, but it is a following the Vedic instruction. So it's following some kind of spiritual path, if not actual devotional service, if not bhakti, but some kind of approved path within the Vedas. But the chanting of Hare Krishna is nothing like those things. It is not a karma kanda activity where we still have some desire for the fruits of those activities, but this is completely different. And the benefits, as we said, the benefits of chanting Hare Krishna are far, far greater than just these simple ritualistic activities. It simply cannot compare. So then if we do consider them to be the same, then that is an offense again. And then the 9th offense is to instruct the faithless person about the glories of the holy name. And this means we can tell people, like we go out on the streets, we go on Harinam, we tell people chant Hare Krishna, but we don't, give a full explanation of, Cheto Darpana Marjanam, explain all the whole verse, and get into all of that, and the glories of the holy name, and all those different things. We simply just tell them chant, and when it's easy when you're out on the streets, because they're seeing the devotees having such a wonderful time, and it's a transcendental party, and like Srila Prabhupada says, everyone likes to sing, everyone likes to dance, everyone likes to have food, have prasadam. So it's just like that. They see it and they think, oh, let me join in. So we just encourage them to chant the holy name in that way, but we don't, because they don't have any faith in it at the time, or they don't have any faith yet in the holy name. Simply they're just doing it because it seems like it's a fun thing to do. But we don't, go into detail about the glories of the holy name, because they will misunderstand. They may even develop an offensive mentality about the holy name. So we just keep it simple for those people. Obviously, this is just talking about faith. Obviously, between devotees, we do discuss this, but to those who don't have any faith yet, we don't mention the details of it. And then, continuing on this point about faith, the 10th offense is to not have complete faith in the chanting of the holy name, and to maintain material attachments even after understanding so many instructions on the matter. And we may feel, at least again speaking for myself personally, I don't know about you guys, but definitely for me, I'm guilty of this offense all the time. So but as I said, it's a gradual process. We all start, unless we're already a pure devotee, we all start at the offensive stage of chanting. We can't avoid it. We have to actually go through it. So we will be chanting with offenses at the beginning, And so, that includes this, that we have not, is that we have not developed it yet. It's not that we'll never have complete faith, but we just haven't developed it yet. So we have a little faith, and maybe we just have faith because Srila Prabhupada told us to chant, or our spiritual master told us to chant, or something like that. We have a little faith and we chant. But at the same time, we have our foot in one boat and the other foot in another boat. So we're still keeping our material attachments on the other hand. Even though, we've heard so many instructions, but we don't want to read this and go too hard on ourselves that, I've heard this again and again every day, and why can't I just get this? Why can't I just get this? As I said, it's a gradual process. And yeah, as I said, we will be starting off in the offensive stage of chanting Nama Parad before we go further to Nama Bas, and then eventually the pure name of the Lord, Shuddhanam. And then we always end this recitation of offenses by saying that it is also an offense to be inattentive whilst chanting. And this is mentioned, is not included in the 10 offenses, but it is mentioned because it is considered the root cause of all the other offenses. When we become inattentive whilst chanting and don't become conscious about our chanting, then all these offenses will creep in. As I said at the beginning, that we need to, when we're chanting, to be consciously trying to avoid these offenses. So if we're not being attentive, then we won't be conscious about that. And then naturally, those offenses will creep in, and the mind will come up with so much distractions and so much nonsense, and it will become so difficult. So we have to really, definitely at the beginning, we have to make a real conscious, it may require a lot of effort, to make that real conscious effort to be aware that I must avoid these offenses. And ultimately, how do we, the best way to on one hand avoid these offenses or bad habits and pick up good habits of chanting is to chant in the association of other devotees, specifically advanced devotees, those who have already some strong faith, some taste in the holy name. If we chant in their association, for example, maybe at the temple, if we're able to go, then that is very helpful. And it also encourages us when we see everyone else around us doing the same thing, and encourages us to take our chanting more seriously and make more of an effort. So then, okay, so we were talking about how we're starting this process of communion with the Lord through the transcendental sound, through the holy name, and then through this process, Srila Prabhupada says in the purport that the Lord reveals his identity gradually to one who has unflinching faith, both in the spiritual master and in the Lord. So again, continuing this point about faith, that, just as I said earlier, just as he explained, that all knowledge of the Vedic scriptures through chanting the holy name becomes revealed in our heart, and also knowledge or understanding of the Lord's identity is also gradually revealed to us. But we have to have faith in these two personalities, in our spiritual master and in the Lord. Or if we're not initiated, then at least some faith in the Lord and faith in Srila Prabhupada. Then if we have that faith, then we will slowly understand. Krishna will gradually reveal more and more to us, and we'll understand, his actual identity as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and also as our eternal, loving, best friend, and even beyond that, we will eventually get understanding of our own identity, our own relationship, specific relationship with Krishna. All of these things over time become revealed. And then, okay, so we've got this faith, we've got this understanding of Vedic scriptures, understanding of Krishna. And then, as I said at the beginning, as a kind of byproduct of this process, we become endowed with mystic opulences, and Srila Prabhupada says they are 8 in number. So I'm just going to go through them quickly, because we don't, we're not going to focus on them, because our aim as devotees is not, or our goal as devotees is not just achieve these mystic opulences and then that's it, we're done. That's, as I said, it's just a byproduct, but that is not our focus. So I'm not going to spend so much time on it, but just to list them, or give Krishna's explanation of these opulences. So this is in this list of the 8 perfections, 8 mystic perfections, comes from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 11, Chapter 15, text 4 to 5. So this is the part of the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is also called the Uddhava Gita. This is where Sri Krishna himself is explaining what some people call the sequel to Bhagavad Gita. He's explaining further instructions to Uddhava, to his dear friend and associate Uddhava. And this goes on for many, a good chunk of Canto 11 is spent on this conversation between Krishna and Uddhava. And within that, he explains briefly the 8 mystic perfections. Then afterwards, there are further verses where he gives individual explanation for each one, but I won't go through that. But just the summary here. So first of all, Krishna says that among the 8 primary mystic perfections, so actually after he does give some secondary mystic perfections, but again, we won't go into that. But the main mystic perfections that we will mention. So the 3 by which one transforms one's own body are Anima, which is becoming smaller than the smallest, Mahima, becoming greater than the greatest, and Laghima, becoming lighter than the lightest. So as I said, this is not our aim, but we can at least know what they are. And I guess we could give one example of, let's say Hanuman. Yeah, Hanuman is a great example actually. He showed all of these when he was traveling across the ocean to Lanka. At various points, he came across various obstacles and various demons. And at some point, he became smaller than smallest. At some point, he became greater than the greatest, lighter than the lightest. But he was just doing these things. Why was he doing it? Just to get away from these demons, to move past these obstacles and continue with his service. So we can see from that example what the actual focus is on our service. It's not on the actual mystic perfections, the mystic opulences. That's just a means to an end, but it's not the end. And so Hanuman is a good example of that devotees have these mystic perfections, but they don't. That is not the aim in life, but they may use those in the service. Okay, so then after that we have through the perfection of prapti, one acquires whatever one desires, and through prakamya siddhi, one experiences any enjoyable object, either in this world or the next. So basically, whatever, like is explained That's, you know, some yogis can do this, that whatever they desire, they can just suddenly appear. They can just suddenly, they could have got it from somewhere in the other side of the world, but it will just suddenly appear to them. Just whatever they desire, they can get it. And then it says that through Ishita Siddhi, one can manipulate the sub-potencies of Maya. And through the controlling potency called Vashita Siddhi, one is unimpeded by the three modes of nature. So it's saying that we can have to some, obviously, we're all minute parts and parcels, so we can't do it to a great extent, but to a very small extent, we can exert some influence on material nature around us, on the material energy. We can manipulate it, but yeah, only to a certain extent. Definitely nowhere near the extent of the Lord himself. And then the eighth one is that one who has acquired Kama Vasayita Siddhi can obtain anything from anywhere to the highest possible limit. But we can see generally these are all still material things, ultimately get us material things. And I haven't got it here, but later on then Krishna does, you know, go on to explain that these are not the devotees. Automatically they get these opulences, but they don't place any importance, any value on those. They're simply, their only desire is to serve Krishna, to perform devotional service, and they don't care about these mystic opulences, but they are there. And then, you know, it's also explained in the scriptures that for one who has bhakti, for one who has devotion to the Lord, then all of these other things, bhukti, mukti, all these different things, these material things, they come before them like maid servants, ready to serve you. If you are a devotee with bhakti, then simply by having that bhakti, then all the other things, the opulences and mukti, liberation, all these different things, they describe that they come before you like humble maid servants. So, as I said, they come automatically when we have bhakti, but we don't desire them. Okay. Yeah, so yeah, maybe we could have another volunteer to read these 2 points.
Prabhuji, if I could please read.
Okay. Sure.
Thank you. And above all, the devotee is accepted in the confidential entourage of the Lord and is entrusted with specific service of the Lord through the agency of the spiritual master. A pure devotee is more interested in serving the Lord than in showing an exhibition of the mystic powers dormant in him.
Okay, thank you, Mataji. So again, the second part, I just mentioned that because I just discussed that anyway. The second part is that the pure devotee is more interested in serving the Lord than in showing an exhibition of the mystic powers dormant in him. So that's the point that we were just discussing. And here Srila Prabhupada is saying that those mystic powers are dormant in him. So they are there, but they're not in an awakened state. Because they're just there, but we don't have interest in them, so we just kind of leave them alone. So in that sense, they're just dormant. We're not sort of actively using them, you know, unless we need to. Like, I mean, we don't generally need to, but like, just for example, that example we had of Hanuman, that he just used them just to get away and continue to go to his service. But yeah, generally we don't really even think about these opulences. But yeah, the first point, that a devotee is accepted in the confidential entourage of the Lord and is entrusted with specific service of the Lord through the agency of the spiritual master. So like I was mentioning before, it said, one second. Yeah, it said that the Lord reveals his identity to us gradually when we have that faith in the spiritual master and the Lord. So faith in the spiritual master means following instructions of the spiritual master ultimately. And then by following the instructions of the spiritual master, pleasing the spiritual master in that way, we will eventually get these these incredible results that we actually entrusted with our specific service to the Lord, and then also accepted in the Lord's confidential entourage. This is all through the spiritual master. So I mean, it clearly shows how important it is that we need a spiritual master, because then through them we actually eventually find out what is my specific service to the Lord, what is my specific and unique relationship with the Lord. And yeah, that service, depending on what our constitutional position is, it may be directly to the direct service to the Lord, or indirectly through the servant of the servant of the servant, but whatever it may be, is through the agency of the spiritual master. So by the grace of the spiritual master, that information of our actual service, our specific service, is revealed to us. And then in that way we are accepted in the confidential entourage of the Lord. Or in other words, we're accepted in Krishna's family. I've heard Srila Prabhupada explain it that way as well, in his lectures sometimes when he's talking about Vrindavan and Krishna and the devotees. We become part of Krishna's family. So such an incredible thing that we can achieve if through the mercy, through the grace of the spiritual master. For example, in terms of this finding out our specific service of the Lord, it's maybe a more very high level example, but it just comes to mind. There's the pastime of Srila Narottam Das Thakur, when he finds out his specific service of the Lord, what his specific service is in the spiritual world. Obviously, he's a pure devotee anyway, coming to this world to perform certain pastimes, but within the pastimes, at some point, he finds out his service. And just wanted to mention it because it's a very lovely story, that because we can, once we get to this high stage of then acting in our specific service to the Lord, it's not that we have to leave our body and go to the spiritual world to do that. Even here in the material world, it's explained that these pure devotees, that they go into a kind of mystic meditation, mystic trance, or not mystic, but like spiritual trance, where they actually, you can see seemingly their bodies, they're still there in the material world, but actually they're performing their service at the same time within this trance. So anyway, at one point, Narottam Das Thakur, it is revealed to him, in this example, actually from Srimati Radharani herself, rather than the spiritual master, but is explained that you are actually Champak Manjari in the spiritual world, and your service is to boil milk, which will then be used by Champakalata Saki to create milk sweets for Krishna. So basically, boiling milk to be used in sweets is Narottam Das Thakur's service to the divine couple in the spiritual world. So then he goes, goes into this trance, and he's performing that service, and at the same time, seemingly his body is still here in the material world. So it's just happening simultaneously. And then to show that this is actually it's not just in the mind, but it's actually real. He's boiling the milk at one point, and the milk boils over, and he burns his hands because he had to pick up the pot, and he burns his hands. And then that brings him out of the trance, and he returns to external consciousness, but he sees that his hands are actually burnt. So there's just to illustrate that is actually real, that he was actually in his specific service in the spiritual world. And obviously, being a humble devotee, he covered up his hands. He didn't want anyone to find out, and therefore find out about his highly elevated position. So yeah, in this way, he's then performing his actual service to the Lord. So anyway, yeah, as I said, it's a bit of a high level example, maybe not so relatable for us, but I just love to tell you that pastime. So yeah. So then, okay, so these last 2 points from the purple, maybe we can have someone else to read this, please, if you don't mind.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, can I read it, please?
Yeah. Sure.
Thank you. Sri Narada has explained all this from his personal experience, and one can obtain all the facilities which Sri Narada obtained by perfecting the chanting process of the sound representation of the Lord. There is no bar for chanting this transcendental sound by anyone, provided it is received through Narada's representative, coming down by the chain of disciplic succession or the parampara system. Thank you, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Matthew. So, last 2 points in the purport from Prabhupada. He's saying that Narad has, he has personally experienced all these things that he's explaining to Vyasadeva. Again, so he's giving us a practical example of that it is actually possible. So, and Narad Muni is the proof that we can obtain all of these things, obtain all the facilities, it says, which Narad obtained by perfecting the chanting process of the sound representation of the Lord. We see that chanting the holy name of the Lord ultimately, frees us from material existence. We know. What is it? Sorry. Yeah, through such pure contact with the Lord, the devotee can rise above material planes. In other words, we can rise above material existence, and then we actually become free. Because at the moment we are not free, we are bound by Maya, bound by material nature, but we are thinking, we are free, but actually we're not. And then we hear when we come to the movement that you should avoid these 4 things. The regulative principles, what are they known as? The regulative principles of freedom. So all of these things is to actually give us real freedom, which is the facility that we can see most clearly with Narad Muni, that he has complete freedom to go anywhere and everywhere, wherever he likes to go. He can go there, whether the material world, spiritual world, anything, he can just go. So he has complete freedom. But what does he do with that complete freedom? He is simply glorifying the Lord wherever he goes, chanting the holy name of the Lord, and in that way performing a service to the Lord. So it's all about service. So when the focus is just on us here in the material world, and we're in that materialistic existence, then we have very little actual freedom. We have very little freedom, but we want to just use it for ourselves and not for Krishna. But the pure devotee has all freedom, but doesn't want to use it for himself at all. and simply using all of that for Krishna. So it's a very striking difference there. So yeah, Narad Muni has so many facilities, and here it's saying we can obtain all those facilities. We can have that complete freedom as well. We can obtain all these, as I said, they're not what we desire, but we can obtain as a byproduct those opulences as well. And ultimately we become engaged in devotional service to the Lord. All of these things come just by perfecting our chanting of the holy name. And then finally, Srila Prabhupada is saying there's no bar for this chanting. Anyone can do it. Srila Prabhupada says this countless times in his classes, in his lectures, that there is no, what's the word? Okay, we'll just stick with bar, but he says, that there's no restriction to this chanting, and it goes beyond time, place, and circumstance. We can chant it anywhere. There's no hard and fast rules, as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says. So anyone could do it, and that's why, as I said earlier, when we're trying to encourage people to chant on the streets, Harinam and things like that. There's no bar. Any of them, anyone on any random person on the street can chant this holy name. But the point here, the qualification is, Srila Prabhupada qualifies the statement that provided it is received through Narad's representative. So basically, someone coming in the disciplic succession, someone bona fide, if we are receiving the holy name from them, then it can be chanted by anyone. So even those people who are hearing on the streets, there are those are actual devotees, actual practicing devotees who are going out and doing this service, which is very dear to Krishna, as we heard in the when we discussed the first offense to the holy name, that they are, they're bona fide devotees, and so these people on the streets, they're hearing this chanting from them. So again, they're not receiving something incorrectly or from the wrong source. So yeah, ultimately there's no bar for chanting this, and we can see this. We talk about Harinam, and we can see this even more clearly when we have Rath Yatra, which is coming, as we know, which is coming very soon. The biggest transcendental party of the year, and so many people are not, without even intending it, they just happen to be there, and they're swept up into this party, and they start chanting the holy name, start singing and dancing, and it's, as we all know, it's so wonderful. So it clearly shows there's no bar. Such an incredible variety of people that are there in London and all the other major cities where we have the Rath Yatra. And all of those people are being exposed to the holy name. They're getting involved in the chanting and the dancing. So it's so wonderful. And we also hear, just on this point of Rath Yatra, we also understand that Srila Prabhupada explains as well, that anyone who sees the Lord, anyone who sees Jagannath Baladev Subhadra on the Rath cart, they achieve liberation, or they become eligible for liberation simply by seeing the Lord. Then obviously, that's why I say you become eligible for it, because then obviously, then depending on your actions after that, dictates, because obviously if you're still performing sinful activities, then that's different. But at least you become eligible for that liberation simply by seeing the Lord. So such incredible benefit that all these people get just by hearing the holy name of the Rath Yatra and seeing the transcendental form of the Lord, which, as we said, there's no difference between the form and the name. So yeah, such incredible benefit. And even I don't know if it comes from Srila Prabhupada himself, maybe other devotees know more and can mention after, but devotees also say that, yeah, when you, at the end of your life, you know, all of these things that you've seen will flash before you, and then because you saw Lord Jagannath, you saw Baladev Subhadra on the Rath cart, then at the end of your life, that image that you saw will be, you will see it again at the end of your life. So Lord Jagannath will again bestow his mercy on you at the end of your life. Yeah, I don't know if that's directly from Prabhupada, but the way to say that. But yeah, so that is the end of the purport, and yeah, I hope we got something out of that. Had to rush through quite a few things, but yeah, we did briefly. We briefly went through the offenses of the holy name. We briefly went through the mystic opulences, and we briefly, went through this, like it showed in the verse itself, that kind of progression. That we chant the holy name and we get this transcendental knowledge, and then these opulences come to us, all these things come to us as part of the process, and then finally we become situated in devotional service through the spiritual master. Srila Prabhupada focuses a lot about the spiritual master in the purport, mentions it a few times, so he's just reinforcing the importance of, yes, we're chanting the holy name, but we have to receive it from the spiritual, receive it from a bona fide source, from the spiritual master. So yeah, I don't know if anyone, I know it's 9 o'clock is gone now, but if anyone has any questions or corrections or additions, then yeah, please go ahead.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Vanita Mataji here. I just wanted to know, Kama Vasayeta Siddhi. What does it mean by that?
Okay. Okay, 1 second. I think I just, yeah, so I think I closed the PowerPoint. Just give me 1 second. So, yeah, said that one who has acquired Kama Vasayita Siddhi can obtain anything from anywhere to the highest possible limit. So I was also a bit unsure because it's kind of similar to the previous one. It said earlier that perfection of property, one acquires whatever one desires, and then through Prakami Siddhi one experiences any enjoyable object. So then this seems quite similar, obtaining anything from anywhere. But let me just look at.
Can you elaborate a bit more?
Yeah, I'll just see what Krishna says about that, because he does elaborate on each one. Okay. Sorry, 1 second. Okay, so regarding the Kama Vasayita Siddhi, Srila Prabhupada says in one of the purports, he says that it's clearly stated in Srimad Bhagavatam that devotee has no personal desire or karma, but one who has personal desire is certainly within the material world, and on the material platform, the greatest happiness is Kama Vasayita Siddhi, for the perfection of completely obtaining anything that one desires. So it's saying this is material on the material platforms. Basically, when it says anything one desires, it means anything material. We can obtain it, but in terms of how that is different from the others. Yeah, it's not. Sorry, it's not so clear. What's the difference between those? Yeah. So I don't have so much more to say on that actually. I don't know. Maybe if someone else knows. So I got a question from someone else who doesn't want to be named, but I'll just maybe.
It's okay. That's fine.
Yeah, if anyone needs to leave, feel free. But yeah, someone sent me a message anonymously. So so someone is basically asking, like one thing they say is forcing people to say Krishna's name on the streets for fun, is it an offense to those belonging to that culture? Just an observant question. So I'll just mention that bit first. So it's not that we're not forcing anyone to say Krishna's name, but they just naturally they're seeing how the devotees are so blissful in their chanting, so they feel, oh, why don't we do that as well? And yeah, for them it's just a bit of fun, but we don't consider it an offense because they're not doing it knowingly. Like Srila Prabhupada, that famous quote from Srila Prabhupada, that even if one is chanting the name jokingly or in the sense that they're making fun of it, still they get benefit. And the devotees, the devotees of the Lord, it's said they're even more merciful than the Lord. They're so merciful that whatever way they can to get these people who otherwise would never ever chant the holy name, whatever way they can to get them to chant the holy name, they'll do that because they have compassion for those souls and they want to bring those souls to Krishna, and therefore they are so dear to Krishna. And therefore that we heard that it's an offense to blaspheme those devotees who are trying to spread the holy name. So it's not really, those people chanting the name just for fun or whatever it might be, it's not an offense really. And other devotees shouldn't see those people and think, like, for example, we go on Harinam in London, there's these drunk people, they're chanting Hare Krishna as a bit of a joke, and they may even be kind of making fun of it. But we as devotees shouldn't see, oh, they're making offense. So we should see, they're somehow or other they have now chanted the holy name. So that means their spiritual journey has now begun. There's no way back for them now. They've chanted the holy name, and so that's the start of their good fortune, if you like. And then over time they may come across more devotees like that. Okay, yeah. So I got another message from a devotee that said that was what I'm trying to ask. So yeah. And then just one more. So there's another question that, these 8 mystic qualities that we can attain, are those relevant to elevated souls in the past era? So maybe wrong, but I'm guessing you mean that in the past ages, in previous yugas, there's probably more relevant, which, yeah, I would agree with. We see that, in the previous yugas, we see that it was more prevalent. For example, I gave the example of Hanuman and all these different things we don't really see in the current age, in Kali Yuga, because obviously you have to get to a certain point and it requires a lot of effort and dedication to get to that point, and the vast majority of people in this world are not interested in that. So it's very rare to see those things. If they do still happen, even Srila Prabhupada mentions that, for example, yogis, yogis in India, they still perform these things, but obviously it's not highly publicized or anything, but it still happens. There are yogis who can do these things. And also, for example, Srila Prabhupada says they can take bath in one river, come out in another river, and then take bath and come out in another river, and in that way, in a very short time, they can take bath in all the holy rivers. They can do all these things. All of these things still happen, but it's not publicized, and especially in the Western world, they're not going to publicize that these things happen, even if they do know about it. But ultimately, as I said, it's not really for us to worry about in this age. It's very hard to obtain those things anyway. But if we simply follow this process of chanting the holy name, then eventually we will automatically get them. But then, because we're devotees at that point, then we're not really. It's insignificant to us, and also it's insignificant because we understand how much superior bhakti is, and the bliss and happiness we can get from that is far superior. So then we don't really have any attraction for those mystic opulences anyway. Anyway, I hope that answered that devotee's question. So yeah, let's stop here because it's 15:15 now. So yeah, thank you so much to everyone for coming for this class. Yeah, as I said, I hope you got something out of it. And the next class will be I believe, the final verse of this chapter. So yeah, Hare Krishna. Vancha kalpa tarubhyascha kripa
Devaja patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namah. Hare Krishna.
Nantakoti Vaishnavrinda
Ki jai.
Jai.
Chapter day.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Wonderful class, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Wonderful
Hare
class. Thank you so
Krishna.
much.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.